To the death of the modern-day coalition, which met its bitter end yesterday following a breakdown in negotiations between the Liberal and National parties. The Nationals' leadership team, consisting of David Littleproud, Bridget McKenzie and Kevin Hogan, pulled the pin on the coalition after Liberal leader Sussan Ley refused to agree to the Nationals' list of 4 non-negotiables. These were nuclear energy, supermarket divestiture, the $20 billion Regional Future Fund and universal service obligations to ensure reliable mobile phone coverage in regional areas. The end of the coalition comes as many National MPs expressed their anger at the fact that their party signed up to net zero obligations, and as the Australian reports, this was especially apparent in yesterday's decision because the final trigger for David Littleproud and his team was the fact that the Liberal leader said she could not agree to a request from Mr Littleproud allowing his shadow cabinet ministers a free vote on contentious issues, including net zero emissions by 2050. Joining me now for more on this are Sky News contributors Prue McQueen and Teena McQueen. Teena, is this a case of disunity leading to death? Is this the end of Conservatives in Australia?
Oh, look, I hope not. I think it's been done out of sheer frustration. To be honest, Rita, this has been, on the card since Turnbull's leadership of the Liberal Party. That started to drag the party to the left and then continued. We haven't been there to support our base with strong Conservative views. And I think the Nats, rightly so, have said, enough. I've had enough. Particularly things like phone coverage seems like a little thing, but as someone with a daughter living in the country, I travel, 2 hours of my 4-hour journey, there is no phone coverage. So, but I can tell you, Rita, there's been a lot of Liberal donors that donated the Liberal Party that have contacted me specifically offering their support to Matt Canavan. There's a lot of support out there for Matt Canavan and where the National stance at the moment. So, look, clearly, ideally, they have to get together to form government at some stage for the next election if they hope to win. But, I admire the Nationals. Some of them are giving up money, have a massive drop in pay and to stand on a principle. And I think that's, I take my hat off to that. And that shows a true politician of conviction.
That's a very good point there, Prue. It's been underreported. There are going to be pay cuts here, and you don't see politicians often opting for a pay cut, but that's what they're doing, and they're doing it on principle.
Well, it's nice to see politicians with principle for a change. It's not just a pay cut, of course, it'll be a staff cut. So they're really, a lot of people have been saying they're just posturing and, spoiled brats and, playing to their constituents. But I think it had to happen. And I don't believe that you can trust that Sussan Ley, who started off, I was impressed with her first speech, but we know that she's woke. We know that she's a wet. We know that the moderates, Photius has his tentacles everywhere within the Liberals. And so many of them want to take it to the left, to the centre left. And that, of course, will spell, incredibly bad news for the true Conservative voter. So I think it was great that Matt Canavan sort of was the person who threw the grenade in. I think Littleproud, if he continues supporting net zero, is a dead man walking. It's time for the Liberals to wake up to themselves and not even consider drifting to the moderate side and Labor light, and they need to get their finger out and start, announcing policies that are going to better reflect their core constituents who are Conservatives.
Rita, can I just add, if the Nationals ran in Sussan Ley and Angus Taylor's seat, they would win. So I think Sussan Ley and Angus Taylor are going to have to carefully consider their options. I have no doubt that Nationals would win both those seats.
Well, let's talk about that. But first, about the path to reconciliation. There are Liberal Party stalwarts urging for the reconciliation to happen very quickly. Former Prime Minister John Howard is one of those stalwarts. He told the Australian Financial Review, "My advice is to reform as soon as possible and resolve their policy differences within the framework of a coalition if they are separated for too long, they will increase their differences and make resolution more difficult. But that is looking unlikely amid suggestions that David Littleproud and Sussan Ley do not like each other. The Australian reports Sussan Ley intends not to reform a coalition with David Littleproud's Nationals before the 2028 election. Teena, what is that going to mean? Would an extended period of a split that lasts 3 years, perhaps beyond, see these two parties become too dramatically different, see the Nationals really go back to their roots and see the Liberals become some sort of teal alternative, which is not going to be appealing to the bulk of the country?
No, if the Liberals go down the teal track, it's going to be disaster. You know, they'll be non-existent. Look, maybe if these two leaders, who I really think they don't get on, perhaps there may be a change in leadership for both parties to resolve this issue. I mean, who knows? But clearly, common sense and anyone with a half a brain knows that the coalition has to exist with, as I said, any hope to form government. But very, very stubborn. But honestly, the left of the party cannot, the left of the Liberal Party cannot take over, or will be doomed. So I say, you know, good on the Nats, and hopefully there's enough people in the Liberal Party that will look after their Conservative base.